Picture this for a second. What if before your hands even twitched to turn the steering wheel, your car already knew you wanted to change lanes? Or what if it knew you were falling asleep before your eyelids even started to feel heavy? I know, it sounds like pure science fiction, right? But the reality is, the technology to link our brains directly to machines, it's already here. Welcome to This Explainer. I am so thrilled you're joining us today because we are going on a wild, fascinating journey into the absolute bleeding edge of automotive tech. So, here is our roadmap for today. First, we'll look at the Gen Z disruption. Then, perfecting the physical ride, followed by AI as your co-pilot. After that, we're diving into driving with your mind, and we'll wrap things up with a look at the ethical minefield. All right, let's kick things off with part one, the Gen Z disruption and redefining the rulebook. To really wrap our heads around where cars are going, we have to look at exactly who is building them right now. There's this whole new digital-first approach from Generation Z, and it is completely tearing up the traditional automotive engineering rulebook, which brings us to a brand built entirely from the ground up, Vloris Motors. Their mission statement is incredibly bold. Just listen to this, where luxury meets its speeds. What's truly fascinating here is that this isn't coming from some board of legacy executives in suits. It's coming from a completely new kind of visionary. Get this, the CEO, Anish Ray, at age 12, he was already sketching raw automotive concepts. Now, at just 15 years old, he's literally bypassing that slow, old-school clay prototyping process. Instead, he's jumping straight into advanced digital engines like Unreal Engine and Blender to build these highly complex, fully animated 3D models. And his game plan for ages 18 to 20 is to finalize the most futuristic motor in the world. It perfectly illustrates how Gen Z is building the future themselves, right? They're testing and perfecting aerodynamics in hyper-realistic virtual spaces long before a single piece of metal is ever cut. And you can really see the stark contrast this digital-first mindset creates. Think about your standard, classic luxury car. It kind of feels like a 19th century drawing room, right? Heavy static wood, rigid leather, maybe a tiny static GPS screen. Now throw that completely out the window. The digital future, specifically the Vloris hypercar concept, embraces this vibrant, ultra-modern spaceship aesthetic. We are talking about exterior paint that seamlessly morphs to match your mood, a totally wild U-shaped stimulator instead of a steering wheel, and private jet-style hanging LED land maps. It's a completely different paradigm. Moving smoothly on to part two, perfecting the physical ride, focusing on mechanics and comfort. So a digital spaceship sounds amazing, but cars still have to operate in the brutal physical world. Before we even begin to talk about mind control, we have to look at how engineers are grounding this crazy tech. If you've ever hit a massive pothole, you know firsthand that driving creates some really violent vertical and lateral forces. To handle this, modern engineers are using incredibly complex geometry. By combining a Saurus linkage with a slider crank mechanism in the seat suspension, they can effectively absorb and isolate the passenger from those harsh double-acting forces. To understand exactly why that isolation is absolutely crucial, let's look at the numbers behind the ISO standard for vibration. This breaks down what levels of physical vibration actually translate to real discomfort and health risks. For a lot of standard vehicles, the vibration magnitude regularly tops the 0.47 meters per second squared mark. Now, that places drivers squarely in the health guidance warning zone for long-term exposure. Over time, that's not just a bumpy ride. We're talking about severe back pain and spinal issues. We simply have to cushion the human body better. And when we scale things up to hypercars, those physical strains multiply exponentially, with massive G-forces during sharp, high-speed turns. So how does Vloris solve this? It's actually genius. They use dynamic G-force swinging seats. Instead of you sitting rigidly and just fighting the intense physics, the seat physically banks and tilts left and right, fluidly mimicking an artificial flight simulator. It cradles you during heavy acceleration, literally taking the physical strain completely off your body. Okay, that brings us to part three, AI as your co-pilot and the smart cabin environment. Now that your body is physically secured, let's zoom out to the entire cabin. Artificial intelligence is radically transforming vehicle usability and safety. Think of it as the ultimate bridge between human limitations and mechanical perfection. AI is taking vehicle awareness way beyond what we can do. It's using thermal imaging to detect heat patterns, easily spotting pedestrians on pitch-black roads where our human eyes would be totally useless. It's also using generative AI to create incredibly complex, synthetic traffic scenarios to test safety features virtually, saving millions of real-world test miles.
Oh, and it even handles predictive maintenance that's tailored directly to your personal driving habits.
But AI's most critical job is actually right inside the cabin, interfacing directly with you, the driver. Here is the massive engineering headache, though. When engineers try to read biological data, like your brainwaves, inside a moving, violently vibrating machine, they've run into something called shock artifacts. Basically, these are brief interruptions or spikes of noise in the sensor data caused by the physical vibrations of the car, or even just the driver flexing a muscle. It's like trying to listen to a whisper in the middle of a hurricane. The data gets incredibly messy.
So how do we fix it? Enter the Eureka method. It's a brilliant three-step process. Step 1, the AI acts as an aggressive filter, instantly stripping out all that raw mechanical and muscular noise from the brain sensors. Step 2, it analyzes that nice, clean data, zeroing in on specific brain regions to detect the exact millisecond the driver starts transitioning from alert to dangerously fatigued. And Step 3, the car actively intervenes. It instantly shifts the ambient cabin lighting to a bright, waking blue LED. Think about that for a second. The car is literally reading your sleepy brain waves and altering your physical environment to wake you up and prevent a crash. No way, right?
Which leads us perfectly into Part 4, Driving with Your Mind, focusing on brain-computer interfaces.
This is where we blow the doors totally off traditional driving mechanics and step straight into sci-fi reality, the brain-computer interface, or BCI. Now, you might be thinking you'd need to be in a high-tech hospital hooked up to a giant machine to have your brainwaves read for something like this, but the magic number here is 14. Researchers are already successfully using consumer-grade 14-channel wireless EEG helms right now in standard smart car simulators. It's non-invasive, it just uses simple saline sensor pads resting on your scalp, and it is actively being proven in the real world as we speak.
But there's always a catch, right? Human thought is just incredibly noisy on its own. A recent UCLA study really drove this point home. They had a paralyzed participant try to move blocks with a robotic arm using only their raw brain signals, and honestly, it just didn't work. However, when researchers paired those exact same brain signals with an AI camera co-pilot, one that could visually infer what the user was trying to do, the participant successfully moved the objects in just 6.5 minutes. The takeaway? You absolutely need the AI to act as a translator between mental intent and physical action.
So if we take this incredible fusion of AI and BCI and apply it to that Vloris Motors hypercar concept, we get a totally frictionless, three-step endgame that completely eliminates the steering wheel. Step 1, the driver simply thinks of a maneuver. Step 2, the BCI instantly reads those specific brain frequencies. Step 3, the hypercar fluidly executes the physical action automatically. No reaching for a dial, no turning a wheel, the vehicle literally becomes a direct, seamless extension of your nervous system. Just pure, thought-driven maneuverability.
Finally, we arrive at Part 5, the ethical minefield and the true cost of cognitive tech.
As absolutely breathtaking as that future sounds, we do have to pump the brakes for a second and look at the profound risks involved in manipulating the human brain. These are fierce, ongoing debates across the industry. First up, there's intense pushback regarding the irreversible nature of surgical BCI trials on animals. Second, there are unexpected psychological side effects. For example, in one deep brain stimulation trial, a patient actually developed a compulsive gambling addiction that only stopped when the device was turned off. Then there's the issue of algorithmic transparency. If an AI stops your car because it thinks your brain is distracted, can that split-second decision actually be audited? We're also looking at massive vulnerability to neuromarketing, where corporations could essentially target your subconscious cravings before you even realize you have them. And finally, there's a very real fear of societal stratification, creating this unbridgeable gap between those who can afford expensive cognitive enhancements and those who simply can't.
It really all boils down to this brilliant concept from the swirl analysis, the dual-use dilemma. The exact same BCI technology that could restore movement and independence to a paralyzed individual could, if it falls into the wrong hands, be used to strip away our fundamental mental privacy. The tool itself is entirely neutral. It's how we as a society choose to apply it that is going to define our future. Which brings up a genuinely terrifying legal ambiguity regarding your data. Ask yourself this: do you actually realize the extent of the cognitive monitoring happening inside these smart cabins? And more importantly, can you easily revoke your consent? If a hacker breaches your smartphone today, they get your photos or your texts. But if they breach your BCI, they could potentially extract your deeply personal, subconscious reactions. Yeah, it's a lot to process.
We've seen today how incredibly young visionaries are using digital engines to design mind-controlled hypercars, and how AI is actively translating our raw thoughts into physical reality. This science is moving at lightning speed.
But as we stand right on the edge of this incredible frontier, I want to leave you with this final, vital thought. Are legacy automotive brands truly ready for this level of technological fluency? And when the day finally comes to check "I agree" on the terms and conditions for a car that connects directly to your cloud-synced brain, are you actually ready? Thank you so much for joining me for today's Explainer. I really hope this sparked your curiosity to go out and learn even more. See you next time.